I'd like to, at this time, invite Jenny Hallett up. She is Mercy Health's Vice President, and she's going to just give you a little overview of some things that they're doing now.
So here, in talking about going into retirement healthy, in order to best to prepare yourself, you want to think about some various things. And so here's a couple that I'm going to talk about today. The next slide. So first of all, next slide please. So how many here knew that the age for colorectal cancer screening dropped from 50, maybe you didn't even know it was 50 at one time, but dropped down to 45? Who knew that? Okay. Some say I knew, but I don't even care, and that's why we're talking today. So the good news is that even though the traditional colonoscopy is the gold standard for testing for colorectal cancer, there are other options, including Cologuard, which are less invasive, and there's a great way and an easy way to detect for this sometimes silent cancer. Always talking about breast cancer screening, mammographies and such, and I can tell you that the industry is really continuing to advance the imaging that these machines can really provide. Our radiologists and our teams can really detect some great images, even within dense tissue. And I can also say that there's been advances with some of the machines where there is even utilization of more concave plates, which for us women, we know that we want to be as comfortable as possible. It's still not going to help, even with the concave plates, but they're trying. So they're trying to make it better. Cervical cancer screening, this is one area that you can cross off your list, women, when you turn 65. So once you turn 65, you aren't in as much risk for cervical cancer screening. I do want to note, though, that many of our kids have received the HPV vaccine, and even for those that have received this vaccination, it is still important for them to continue with their annual cervical cancer screening as well. One that you might not hear too much about or know too much about is lung cancer screening. There's been some great advances using low-dose CT scans that can help detect lung cancer in its early stages. And so for adults that are 50 to 80 with some previous smoking history, it's really recommended that you start getting this type of test and keep up to date with that so that we can try to detect that lung cancer screening as quickly as possible. And another is calcium scoring heart scan. And this is recommended for anyone 35 and older to have this heart scan every 3 to 5 years for someone that has various risk factors, such as a family history of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and some others. And this is really used not to detect cancer in this concept, but to detect the risk of heart disease moving forward. So when our kids were young, we used to take them to the pediatrician, to the family doctor on a regular basis. I never missed my kids' checkups. They were always there. I wanted to see where they were at within their growth scale, get all of their immunizations. But sometimes as adults, then we forgot. We're like, we don't need to do that, right? We're adults. But I'm here to tell you that it is important even as adults, for you to continue to keep up with annual wellness exams. Regular checkups with your primary care physician. Their Medicare Part B does offer 100% coverage for what we call a Medicare annual wellness visit. Let's go to the next slide. This type of exam really includes a lot of the inventory of where you're at with your health. Really takes a look at some of those preventative measures. It's not one that's going to include a physical exam. It's not going to take care of your diabetes medication and such. We've got plenty of time to do that at your other visits. But this is really just one of those full overall checkups that we really try to do on an annual basis. So important for everyone. Vaccinations, even as adults, vaccinations are still important. Why? Sometimes they can wear off and you've got to keep up with those boosters. It really helps to reduce some of the risk factors with other diseases, and it does also help keep the rest of our families and communities safe as well. On the next couple slides, I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well. Let's go to the next slide. You know, just like, again, with our kids, you used to have that chart that maybe you had on your refrigerator that said this is when everybody's due for their different types of vaccines. Same goes for adults, is that there are various vaccines that you need to keep up with, not only on a one-time basis, but then also ongoing. You can go over to the next slide. And this does include an annual influenza vaccine, also pneumococcal vaccine, some of those also that are more common for us to receive as adults. Sorry, I had a couple more notes on that. Going on to blood pressure checks. Nearly half of all U.S. citizens have high blood pressure, and risk goes up as you increase with age. And so it is important to get regular blood pressure checks, certainly if you're in one of the risk groups here. And that's something that can be done right at that annual wellness visit, annual checkup as well. And then on to blood work. Oftentimes during that annual visit, we do various blood work. This too is a way to have early detection of what might be going on. And so your physician might order a complete blood count, a metabolic panel, check your lipids, check your thyroid, and so forth, and really just part of that overall comprehensive screening. So we often think about physical therapy as when we're injured, right? You get injured, you go to the doctor, oh, I've got the sprain, I've got the strain, I broke something, they fixed something, now I've got to go to physical therapy. However, physical therapy and occupational therapy is really important just for ongoing wellness as well. It really can help prevent falls and injuries, and also can help just boost overall wellness. The common phrase now is motion is lotion. And, you know, certainly it helps when they add things like pickleball that, you know, we can all do. And so for it to keep us active in the, during the Midwest winters and such. And so really encourage everyone to keep up regular therapy, whether it's your own exercise therapy or even through a structured fitness therapy at a health center or a health organization for physical therapy, occupational therapy. And then in turning it to employees, certainly we all are business leaders and we all want to make sure that, you know, not only are we invested in our own health, but also our employees. And so within our organization and the companies that we work with, we have a lot of different types of things that we implement with wellness, newsletters, different challenges and so forth. And certainly within your own businesses, I'm sure you've implemented a lot of those tactics as well, ways to try to engage employees within their own health and to help keep your workforce healthy. And so that's what I had to share with you today. Just like your financial advisor, your physician, Mercy Health is here to really help you and help your companies to try to keep track of those investments, investments in your health, so that you can continue to be strong and have a strong workforce and have a fun retirement. So thank you for your time.
So, kind of on the heels of Mercy Health, I don't know if everybody's aware of the recent study that calls out, there's a lot of talk about wellness, quality of life, happiness, and you can improve your quality of life and happiness by, I think, about 63% if you have your property surveyed. So, if you want to be happier, call a surveyor, get on the list. There's a few of them in the room here, so that was my attempt at humor, so thank you. there's some partnering opportunities. I think we can do something there. So I don't think I'm going to talk much about Batterman. I'm going to talk more about the community. So we've been here about 3 years. The company's been around a long time, 106 years, but we opened our office 3 years ago. One of my partners, Lance Wagner, is here. I'm choking up because of you, Lance. And it was, should we, shouldn't we? We've been in Rock County a long time, but we decided to do it, and it's probably one of the best things we ever did. And it's because of the community sense that you get in Walworth County. And I'm not just blowing smoke to you. You got in a great organization here, but the number of opportunities we've had to volunteer in the community, help sponsor this. I think we sponsor a softball team or a baseball team for your kids. What was our record this year? Were we good? Okay, she's shaking her head no. And we were asked to help volunteer at the Rock County Fair. If you haven't done that, they let you drink alcohol there, so the adult beverages help. But this organization has been pivotal, I think, to our success. These type of networking opportunities have been invaluable to us, to get to meet so many people. You're the new guy in the block, you've been around a long time, but it's been a great community. It's one of the best decisions we ever made, so thank you all very much.
All right, well, thank you again. Last but not least is our Inspire speaker for today, which is Cunis Auto Group. And if any of you remember back about 25 years ago, you're amazed at the growth really that company has had, and just the great impact that they've had giving to the community. So really, thank you so much for all that you've done and all that you employ and help in the community. And so I know they just had a little video that they wanted to run here, so we'll do that right now. Thanks so much for your sponsorship, appreciate it. All right, so I can't tell you how many times I get asked these two questions here. What is it? Is the first one, and what they mean by that is, was CEDA a government agency? Is it part of the county, a state agency, quasi-governmental? And just to get the record straight, we are a small nonprofit. We have 3 full-time employees, and just recently added the third one, who's our housing program manager. I'll mention a little bit later, Pam Carper. And then 2 part-times, so we run pretty lean. There are obviously some advantages to that. Anonymity with public records, less red tape, we can be nimble, we can get input from businesses and business and community leaders, and change course pretty quickly. Obviously, there are some challenges too, and limited support, resource support, and funding as well. And so we're very pleased that the county supports about 1/3 of our budget. Very grateful for that. But most of the other 2/3 comes from people in the room here, and like-minded people like yourself who sponsor, who do membership, who help support some of our training courses and that. And so I guess what I'm getting at is that, this is really your agency, and a lot of you do take advantage to some degree, but I guess I would really like to encourage you to do more with that, to take more of an advantage of that, and utilize some of our contacts, let us connect you with some different resources and things like that. And so I feel like this is a good opportunity to also take a moment to give some well-deserved thanks. And so we heard from some of our sponsors, but you can see a big list of sponsors. Really appreciate all your support of this event. Many of those are members. You can see some of our member lists. I know it's small, but really grateful for that. We have a lot of returning members, so thank you for your support. We have a great board of directors, many of whom are here today and many of whom you probably know, but they do just a great job giving insight, financial support, making connections, things like that. We really couldn't do what we do without that, so really appreciative of our board members and committee members, and then of course our staff. So literally I couldn't do what I do without them. Everybody, I think a lot of you have met them, but they're very dedicated, friendly customer service, really like what we're doing. I'm very lucky, but please don't think about stealing them. I do want to call out one person here, Leslie Gostomski, who has been with me, I think almost from the beginning here. She's the person that's up at midnight on Zoom with me, preparing for stuff like this, getting it done. She's a brilliant graphic artist. She's just a great problem solver. She's a great support to the rest of the team, so thank you for all that you do. And then just lastly, our volunteers, Judy Newcomer, who has just been a great partner. She's the business services manager at the Walworth County Job Center. She's great. If you don't know her, please contact her. And then Jim Killian's been helping out for a long time as a volunteer, and he's a great ambassador for Kishwaukee too. But thank you to both of them. So with that, I'd like to talk about the next thing, which is people will say, well, okay, now I understand what it is, but what do you do? I know what economic development is, but what do you do? And so traditionally, I think a lot of people think about development, right? New buildings, expansions, and we definitely do that. There's a couple recent ones that came to fruition that you might be aware of that we worked with, Plastech, and I know they're here today. They're expanding, and largely due to a big increase in exports. It's a plastics manufacturer in Lake Geneva, a homegrown company. We love to see that. We love to work with our local companies for expansion, and then also worked on a company that's nationally known, does tools for wood flooring, Power Nail out of Lake Zurich, and they're under construction in Genoa City. So, that's kind of the traditional, but during the year, we kind of measure some of the visits that we do, and we always have ongoing projects, so you can see that we're always managing, probably 15 to 20 different projects. And we have lots of interactions with members and prospects, and so we definitely keep busy. One of the things you always hear about with economic development is, job creation and why is that important? And so I just pulled this chart. You can see we highlighted the 4 areas, focus areas that we have, which are, healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, and construction. But you can see overall that year over year there was 1,100 net new jobs. And when you just kind of use a basic rate, average rate of 15 an hour, you can see how that really is a significant impact. So just thought I would share that with the group. And kind of just using this as a way to talk about what we're doing and also give you a few updates. Another way that we help impact workforce is through a couple of programs that we have, Inspire and Made in Walworth County. And many of you have met Lisa Pivette from our office here who manages these programs, but she does a great job working with the schools and the businesses to provide career awareness, but also work experiences. And that's really something that we're trying to focus on is the work experiences. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth here. And I would just like to say at this time too that we are really lucky in the county to have such great school administrators, great people at Gateway and UW Whitewater educators who are interested in helping economic development and local workforce. I just really want to say how pleased we are to work with these partners and how eager they are to work with you. If any of you need to get connected, we can certainly do that, but I know a lot of them are here today. So just one point that on this slide to mention is that one area where we've all been focusing on is trying to develop more youth apprenticeships. And you can see over the past 6 years that that's grown dramatically. We still have a lot of potential to build those up, but they keep adding more youth apprenticeship options and things. So if you're interested even for marketing or any different type of healthcare, education, there's all kinds of things. So contact us and we'll get you set up. And then we also work in partnership with Gateway on training programs, and we've seen a big increase the last 2 years really in these programs. More and more of you are taking advantage of it. You know, it's a great resource, very low cost, high quality, and so we have supervisory classes, but then we've just offered a little higher level. We had one cohort this year. We're working on putting another one together, and then you could just see some of the modules on supervisory. We try to run those every 6 weeks. And then we have a new one that we just put together, Spanish, practical Spanish for English speakers. So if anybody's interested in that, reach out to us. And then another big area is events and networking. And so we're proud of our events that we do, not only this one, but we've got kind of a standing golf event, State of the County. Mark Roberta is here from the county and also on our board, but thank you, Mark does a great job with that every year. People enjoy that. We rolled out a workforce symposium this spring, and we did a follow-up in the fall. That'll be a standing one. And then the one in the kind of the middle there is the after hours that we do in partnership with our chambers, and we have a good following of our chambers here today. Great partners again. We all work really well together. It's a great group of people. They're dedicated to helping everyone here, so I'm honored to be a part of that. And then, you know, another section we talk about is business intelligence, really just bringing, you know, certain events to you, different speakers, sharing information about incentives, other things that we take back from conferences or other things that we attend, and we'll share those through our websites and in-person e-communications, things like that, and try to convey some value. And then we also get into this is my last section to talk about as an update, but we'll get into some different special projects. And so last year, one of the things that we did was through a grant from the county did a child care study, and we know that still is a big barrier. WCEDA itself doesn't have the bandwidth to take that on, but we have been talking with other nonprofits about potentially working in that area, and could use the study that we did to give them a bit of a playbook, but it's also being used and can be used in the future for grants for child care centers. So I think it's been useful, and hopefully we'll put that in play a little bit more. Our big focus as far as a special project that came into view this year was housing, and we've been hearing for the last couple of years around workforce housing, and not just in the hospitality sector, but also in manufacturing, healthcare, and other industries. And so thankfully we worked with our county board administrator, our board, and put together a proposal for a housing initiative for approximately the next 12 months, where we were able to hire Pam Carper, who is our program manager for housing. She will be talking with some of our municipalities that are interested in housing, trying to find out what they need, bring potential builders, match up resources, talk with plan commissions, things like that about zoning, maybe bring in planners, and really just try to get some more movement in that area across not only multifamily, but single family duplexes, potential dormitory style, just across the spectrum really. And so we're pretty excited about that. If anybody has interest or wants to participate in that, make sure you get with us. As part of the kickoff to that, we hosted a housing summit at the Abbey September 25th. And it was really a great kickoff. I think we had about 160 people there, but more than that, it was a good mix of builders, administrators, resource partners, realtors, just a really good mix of people there. So feel like we have a good start on that, and you'll be hearing a lot more from that as we progress. So, that's really the update that I had. The last thing that I would call your attention to is your booklets that were at your place settings or on your chair. That has all the information I talked about and more details there. But I also want to call your attention to, there's a stigma reduction program that the county is administering, and it's really, I think, an important thing. We're finding more and more how mental health was a problem prior to COVID, but how it's really impacted the workforce, and there are a lot of good resources available to help with that. So just want to call your attention to that. So I am done with my update, and at this point I'm really excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Jeff Yabuki, to our group, and really grateful for you to be speaking to us today. I had first heard Jeff in this actual space here earlier in the year at a Kikkoman event. It was an International Economic Development Forum, and I was really just very engaged with what the messaging that Jeff had, and so I just want to give a little brief background bio for Jeff before I invite him up. And so Jeff is currently the chairman of Motive Partners. It's a specialist private equity firm focused on financial technology and payments globally, and he has been named among the most innovative leaders in America by Forbes magazine for his transformational impact in business. Yabuki was CEO of Fiserv from December 2005 to May 2020, where he nearly tripled revenue and delivered a total shareholder return of 969% through 2019 by evolving the organization from a traditional holding company into a unified global leader in financial services and innovative payments. Prior to Fiserv, Jeff was Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at H&R Block for 6 years, and held a progression of leadership positions over 12 years at American Express after starting his career as a CPA. Jeff's ability to align strategic vision and operational excellence is sought after globally, serving as a board member for the Royal Bank of Canada, NASDAQ, and as chairman of Sport Radar. He was also named the Sheldon B. Lubar Executive in Residence at UW-Milwaukee, teaching classes in business strategy and financial technology. Jeff is also active in the community, serving as chair of the Milwaukee Art Museum, is trustee at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and on the board of directors of Project Healthy Minds. He and his family are also active philanthropically with a focus on mental health, education, arts, and social justice. Please help me give a warm welcome to Jeff Yabuki.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Derek, that was a lot of words. I made a note to cut some of that crap out. Derek was kind enough to invite me to speak with you, and thank you in advance for that. Two things I want to make sure I'm clear about. Number one, I'm not getting paid, and so you should evaluate my remarks on the basis that they were free. I always like to test the room, like how's it going to be? And then the second thing is I broke 3 rules when I agreed to speak, as I didn't ask specifically what time it would be. My first rule is never speak after there has been access to a bar. You guys know what I mean about that, right? The second thing is don't speak after lunch. Right? How are you all doing? And the third thing is don't speak in places that only serve Pepsi products. But it is great to be here today. I'm going to talk a bit, and you can all hear me okay, I suppose? Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the complexity of today's environment, right? Lots of challenges and opportunities that go with that. I'm sure you all know exactly what I mean. And what that means in the face of what I believe is exponential change, technology disruption, and a super complicated macro environment. Now, I think we can make a choice. That backdrop can either scare the hell out of us or energize us. For me, I choose the latter, and I'm quite excited about the opportunities that I believe are ahead. My goal and hope today, even though I broke some of my own rules, is to share a perspective about how the right balance of leadership, and I can't express that enough, the right balance of leadership in these changing times and great business decisions can achieve growth even in these quite volatile times. Let's agree, Churchill had it right. Like it or not, the way that most of us learn is by making mistakes. How many people would agree with that? Right? That's really how we learn. Right? And I don't know about you, notwithstanding all of that bio stuff that Derek said, my family would tell you that I have made way more than my fair share. But as I think about the challenges that we as leaders have faced over the last several years, from once-in-a-century global pandemic, we now have all kinds of intriguing geopolitical unrest, the Great Resignation, which is now about the great new expectations of employees, economic pressures, interest rate pressures, and as Derek talked about, and we're very involved with, that's all wrapped by a growing mental health crisis, which I'll talk about a little bit more. I believe that the resilience and capability of leaders will be tested truly like never before. And as a result, we have to challenge ourselves to think creatively and strategically to navigate this complex environment. It's so complex, in fact, that the pundits have coined the term polycrisis, which is defined as a cluster of related risks. These are a lot of words. Cluster of related risks, which when considered in the aggregate, has overall impact significantly greater than the sum of the parts. And given the intensity of the 5 risk categories that you see across the bottom, that's truly a mouthful. But to best understand the complexity of what's really happening, let's take a look at a picture. This chart was developed and shared at the World Economic Forum earlier this year. There's a lot to take in. Each of the colors represent a different category of global risk, from technology to economics, climate and environmental risks, societal and geopolitical uncertainty. I'm sure that some would argue that even this, sorry, you guys should have told me. I'm sure that some would argue that even this picture understates what's happening around the world. Each bubble represents the relative size of the risk category, and the lines are designed to show interconnectivity. So what does it all mean? It means we're challenged by a world that is more globally interconnected than ever, creating a significantly more complex strategic, leadership, and operational environment. Which brings us to our first area of focus, using transformational change as a lever to retrench and accelerate business performance. Let me share a personal example. As you heard, I had the privilege of leading Fiserv from late 2005 to early 2020, where we took the company through a full overhaul of strategy, operational focus, capital allocation, and organizational capabilities. Let's be honest, change is hard. How many of you woke up today hoping that your entire world would be turned upside down? Just raise your hand. Now, try explaining that idea to 25,000 people, most who have been at the company for 10 years or more. When I became CEO, I was actually the first non-founder and didn't come from within the business. Fiserv had actually done quite well, delivering a more than 4,000% return in the 20 years it had been public, although the last 6 years had basically been flat. We designed a new platform for change with several core principles. Go where we believe the puck was going and make a choice, a very definitive and affirmative choice on who we wanted to be. Become an integrated operating company and drive excellent, that's the key, excellent business performance and allocate capital in a shareholder-friendly way. And all of it needed to be deeply ingrained within the culture, the essence of who we would be every day. A core tenet of my personal leadership philosophy is a fundamental belief that people want to be part of something bigger than what they do every day. And we use that premise in our drive to become what we believe is a special company. We were recognized as a Fortune World's Most Admired Company for the first time in 2009 and achieved that honor 9 of the last 10 years I was at Fiserv, including the last 8 years in a row. Importantly, we also achieved top quartile employee engagement as compared to all large employers in the US. And as you heard, we delivered a total shareholder return over that transformational 14-year period of 969%. Who cares? What does matter is those results allowed us to have a dramatic impact on the lives of our employee shareholders. I heard from hundreds, if not thousands, of people over my tenure on how our success translated to different flavors of financial freedom, whether it was sending their children to college, buying homes, or retiring in a fashion that they never had believed was possible. Now, lest you believe that that was easy, let's not forget what happened right in the middle of my tenure. The Great Recession, which I can tell you from the inside as we serve most global banks in the world, that we are extremely close to going over the edge and seeing a total collapse of the financial system. And even though Fiserv delivered a strong shareholder return over time, things didn't look quite as rosy during the crisis. In fact, when zooming in, you can see the stock about halved. You can see the stock about halved in a period of months. That didn't go over very well with our employee shareholders, and actually didn't recover from where it was for almost 2 years. We as leaders had a choice at that time, a very important choice. Hunker down and hide, or take some business and capital risks to drive growth and value for the future. And we chose the latter, and fortunately it paid off. Clearly it was not without a multitude of struggles, difficult decisions, and general ups and downs, none of which we have time for today, because it's right after lunch. But I can tell you that the adage, never waste a crisis, was front and center in our approach to navigating that uncertainty. And as you can see, from the low point of the crisis to the end of my last full year as CEO, we actually delivered a more than 1,400% return, 4 times the S&P 500 over that period. And as important, and maybe more important, we accelerated the company's cultural change, which has been foundational to its transformation and long-term success, which continues today. Now, what conversation about Fiserv would be complete without a mention of Fiserv Forum? How many people have been to Fiserv Forum? Thank you. The basketball home of the NBA Milwaukee Bucks, Marquette Golden Eagles, and hundreds of high-profile events each year. This was quite an interesting decision. It took us 2 years to make this decision. It took us less to spend $40 billion on an acquisition, so this one took 2 years. But we decided the opportunity to elevate our brand globally through these naming rights would be an important step in our journey. And we've been fortunate, it's been quite successful. Of course, it didn't hurt that the Bucks won the World Championship in 2021. Now, speaking of championships, are we excited about the Bucks this year? Yeah, we're trying to figure out the Lillard Giannis thing. We'll get there. Overall, the actions of transforming complexity, taking appropriate risks, especially in times of uncertainty, while executing the heck out of a business strategy, has combined to create a more than 40,000% return, 30 times out of the S&P 500 and 17 times of the NASDAQ for Fiserv. Not bad for a little company based in Milwaukee. So what lessons have we learned? In good times and in bad, challenging and opportunistic, the power of a strong end-to-end business model is the most differentiating tool that you can have. How many of you are familiar with the idea of the definition of insanity? Right? My family has been telling me to change for years. But we're trained as managers and leaders to actually identify patterns. This is quite important. Identify patterns which enhance our ability to solve problems, make decisions, and win in our respective markets. And that works perfectly right up until the time it doesn't. And the key is to recognize when the rules have changed, to change, and forge a new path for success. And in my opinion, the rules are changing right now, and if hindsight is 20/20, we need to test for the best way forward to take advantage of the new reality. And the more uncertain the environment, the more critical it is to have a well thought out strategic framework. Greater purpose, focus, and culture across the top. It's easier to get to your destination if you know where you're going. How many of you have used Google Maps or Waze? Right? Most all of us. Have you ever tried to get somewhere without telling it where you're going? Same thing is in business. Absolute clarity on the themes that are required to drive success and the executable strategies and tactics that support the desired outcome. And last but certainly not least, having the talent and organizational structure to get it all done. Simply stated, I believe strategy is nothing other than the allocation of scarce resources to accomplish a specific set of goals and objectives over time. I mention that because had I asked you each to write down how you define strategy, every single definition would be different. And so within your organizations, having people understand what you say when you say the word strategy is quite important. When I teach, I tell my students that I actually believe that the best and most innovative strategies are likely in trash cans somewhere because they're not executable. I'm sure you know what I mean. The more challenging the times, the more important it is to ensure clarity on the what, where, when, and how. If you haven't read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, or it's been a while, it's actually just a great refresher on what it takes to build a sustainably great enterprise, to get the flywheel turning in the right direction, and what the core tenets are to get there, which can be especially valuable in periods of ambiguity and uncertainty, just like we have right now. Greatness occurs at the intersection of disciplined people, thought, and action, and the importance of level 5 leaders, those who recognize it's about the enterprise and not themselves. Regardless of the weather forecast in business, these are proven principles that withstand the test of time. We must embrace the power of innovation in today's business environment, which is even more important in these interesting times. Innovation opportunities are absolutely everywhere across all of our people, process, and technology platforms. And we need to make sure that we think about it just that broadly. It's not just about technology. And I really like the Steve Jobs quote that you see in front of you. Innovation itself, I added that, innovation itself distinguishes between a leader and a follower. highlighting another way that leaders, all of us, have an impact on our organization. A big part of Fiserv's success was connected to the breakthrough technologies emerging in the current digital age, catalyzed by the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. Now, how many of you remember the pre-iPhone era when the BlackBerry ruled the earth? Come on, play with me, right? But it's clear we are entering another powerful time of disruptive technology. And what discussion of disruption would be complete without Elon Musk? You can see his Tesla bots right out of the movie I, Robot. They stand 5'8" inches tall and can lift 150 pounds. These robots are learning to sense the world around them, map it, and navigate it for future use. Before we talk about AI, which I believe is critical as we move forward over the next several decades, let's look back at some of the past innovations that have made a huge impact on our lives. One of the important factors in determining the impact of innovation is the speed of adoption. In the way back days, we measured adoption at scale in years and used 25% of penetration as the point of demarcation. As you can see on the chart, it took 33 years for the automobile to reach 25%. It took 26 years for that thing called television, 16 years for a personal computer. And although we take it for granted today, it even took a dozen years for 25% of US households to have a mobile phone. And as a reminder of the power of a tipping point, there are more than 16 billion mobile devices globally. This slide is focused more on app-based technologies than examples measuring 25% penetration. The race is now to 100 million users globally, and that is now in months and not years, another sign of the world that we live in. Now, can you read the chart? Fantastic. How many of you regularly use 3 or more of the 12 apps shown on the screen? 5? I actually use 8. It took Uber 70 months to hit 100 million users, Instagram 30, 9 months for TikTok. I won't ask any of you if you use TikTok, because I know you won't be honest. And the big winner is ChatGPT. ChatGPT crossed the 100 million user milestone, as you can see, in a mere 60 days, after launching just 1 year ago. It's the fastest growing consumer adoption application in history. And it hasn't stopped. From a standing start a year ago, there are now 180 million users generating roughly $1 billion of revenue, 80 million per year, $80 million per month. And they've really only just gotten started. Speaking of AI, this quote by Google CEO Sundar Pichai is about as telling as I've ever seen. Now, will it truly be more profound than fire or electricity? I suppose only time will tell. The examples we are seeing today are only the very beginning of the cycle of innovation and likely disruption. Who knows what it will look like in retrospect a couple hundred years from now. This slide is about impact, now and in the future. Already, 45% of Americans are using generative AI technologies like ChatGPT. 40% of them say it saves them 1 to 5 hours a week. 29% of them say it saves them 6 to 10. How amazing will that be? 70% of Gen Z, those are 9 to 24 years old, use the technology, and more than 50% of them trust it to help them make informed decisions. That might not bode well for CNBC in the future. Generative AI could ultimately add $4.4 trillion of annual economic value. For context, the annual GDP of the entire UK is $3.1 trillion annually. Half of all of today's work activities, I want that to really sink in, half of all of today's work activities could be automated by 2045. And that's about a decade earlier than had been originally estimated. I personally think that time frame will come in dramatically. And it's estimated that artificial intelligence solutions could ultimately result in the creation of more than 500 million net new jobs. Net is one of the key things to listen for. There will be job elimination, and then they will come back. To that point, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a CEO recently who spends high single-digit billions of dollars per year on technology. He is not a technology company. He shared with me that 30% of all the code that they write is being done by AI today. 30%. And when they get to their goal of 60%, it will save them $800 million per year. This is only the start. We are at the edge of a global sea change of monumental proportion. The economic and innovation potential for businesses of all shapes and sizes is incredibly significant. And let me assure you, this is not just a big business opportunity. This is an all business opportunity. Let's take a bit of a deeper dive in generative AI, which we hear a lot about. Generative AI is artificial intelligence capable of generating text, images, or other media and outputs using generative models. These models learn the patterns and structure of input training data and then generate new data that has similar characteristics. The data or language libraries that you use really matters. Now, has anyone heard of DALL-E? That's great. For those unfamiliar, DALL-E is a text-to-image model developed by OpenAI, the same company that brought us ChatGPT. And it's used to generate digital images from natural language descriptions or prompts. We're entering a world where what's real is quite difficult to discern. Hence the disclaimer you see in front of you. And who knows, maybe in the future the distinction won't even matter. Pizza Kitty, as I like to call this, was created by DALL-E from the prompt on the slide. Although an image of a kitty eating pizza may not be that exciting, I want you to consider artwork, music, film, books, design, and so many other areas of creativity that until recently had been considered off-limit when we were talking about machine-focused domains. Ultimately, navigating this period of innovation and change will come down to what it always comes down to, leadership. And a redefinition of the arena, and a redefinition of that arena is happening in light speed. As I said, the magic happens with the right combination of people, process, and technology. Gone are the days when humans alone will make it happen. Over time, we will see shifts in how workforces are utilized, how leaders engage, and workforce optimization in areas such as relationship management, innovation-based activities, and the completion of higher order tasks. This will lead to new challenges in how leaders engage with their people and the manner in which we motivate these new generations. I mentioned my leadership premise that people want to belong to something bigger than what they do day to day. And that's a critical part of the evolving engagement model for employees. In addition, today's workforce values attributes such as flexibility, remote work, and a mission-driven environment far more than making money. At least that's what they say now. Command and control is dead. These are the times of diversity, inclusion, balance, empathy, and importantly, the vulnerability of leadership that will serve to unlock the true potential of today's workforce. The same old isn't going to work. We, as leaders, have to change. And a major part of that change will surround mental health and how it is embraced in the workplace. I was so pleased to hear Derek talk about stigma. It's perfectly clear that we truly are in the midst of a global mental health crisis. It's estimated that half the population, more than 4 billion people, will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. 4 in 10 high school students feel persistently sad and hopeless, which contributes to suicide now being the second leading cause of death for 10 to 34-year-olds. And in those moments of fear and crisis, families struggle with where to go. It's one of the important reasons why we funded the Craig Yabuki Mental Health Walk-In Clinic, named after my brother who died by suicide, which is fully dedicated to mental health emergencies for children. And in its first year, we saw nearly 800 kids in crisis. The mental health crisis is costing global business roughly $1 trillion per year. And I don't have to tell you, any number followed by 12 zeros is big. By addressing mental health head-on, we have a unique opportunity to highlight the S in ESG, comparable to what we hear constantly around E and climate change. And while eliminating stigma needs to be a critical focus, as I mentioned, we must also redefine the way we support our global workforces by putting physical and mental health on exactly the same plane. Let me close with the important idea you see in front of you. If you change the way you look at things, the things we look at will in fact change. We're living in complicated and interesting times. Times where we must navigate uncertainty and complexity in new ways. And that falls on each of us as leaders, whether at work, at home, or in our communities, to look at the world with a refreshed perspective, optimism, and the confidence that we sit on the precipice of a better tomorrow. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Right now, I think we have another microphone too, if we need
It's going to be
to.
that uncomfortable time when we're just up here and no one has a question.
I don't think so. Hopefully we'll get some. Jesse, you look like you had a question.
Jesse, what do you have? Make it up. Make it a good one.
So, mental health, what would you say to the HR professionals in the room today about their top prioritization of how they would approach mental health within our workforces?
Look, I think, number one, thank you. That's a fantastic question. I don't have the answers. I'll just share opinions. I think, number one, it's not an HR thing. Right? I think we often point at HR. Right? This is a top of the house. We are going to put mental and physical health on the same plane. We are going to make sure that we supply the benefits, that we give people the time that they need, but more importantly, that people will not have the fear that if they bring this to their supervisor, their manager, to HR, that there won't be negative repercussions. I'll share with you, I mentioned that my brother died by suicide. He died in 2017. I was still running Fiserv. And at the time, I was quite nervous that the organization would find out that my brother died by suicide, and they would put the points together and realize that mental illness is actually hereditary, and that if it was in his DNA, maybe it was in my DNA, and maybe that would actually have people have less respect for me. And so I didn't talk about it openly as I'm doing right here. And had I known what I know now, because I've been speaking on mental health for the last couple of years, what I learned is that I would have actually gotten many more people behind me, because showing that if it was okay for me, it was okay for everyone. So to the extent that you can share your own stories and make it okay, that's the way you'll get employees to trust that the organization will treat you fairly and with respect. One person's opinion.
So what if we're thinking about this crisis, it means also we need more people to go into the mental health helping professionals. So could you speak a little bit about that and where you are hopeful of a trajectory go?
Sure. Could you hear that? Okay, that's great. So there is a magnificent, tremendously large deficit in people who can, whether they're psychologists, psychiatrists, behavioral health specialists, whatever the case may be. We helped fund a program at Children's Wisconsin where we placed therapists in addition to the mental health walking clinic. We have embedded therapists in every pediatrician's office, and in every time you bring your child in for a wellness checkup, we screen them, and then if there's an issue, we have a therapist right there who comes and talks to the child. It's been really a great program. We delivered therapy to 27,000 kids last year, and we screened about 170,000. So that's great. We actually know we're not getting them all because we know that number should be 3 times that, but we can't get the therapists. And so we're going to have to look for ways to get institutions to create scholarship, to bring people into the profession. But the other very important issue, and this is an issue that we're working on in Wisconsin, there's a rule that requires a new therapist to basically spend 2 years interning for free. And that does not work economically. We have to figure out how to change that rule. We're having conversations with the governor on changing that rule, which we think will bring more people into the profession. But we also have to encourage people that it is more than an admirable profession, right? And lots of rewards for it. But it's a very complicated algorithm. But I also am very optimistic because the generation, these Gen Zs, think about the world differently. They think about stigma differently. They want to help. They're mission driven. I think we'll see real change if we can create programs that can take them. See, now it's between like after lunch and between exit.
I think we have time for one more question. Okay.
So you spoke a lot about.
Let's get to the mic.
Hold on one second.
This is going to be a good one, I can feel it. When you start out saying you spoke a lot about.
You spoke a lot about the positive aspects and prospects of AI. No, I'm not one of them, I don't think, but what would you say to the doomsayers out there that, are basically saying that could be the end of humanity at some point?
I don't know, probably people said the iPhone was going to be the end of humanity, I'm sure. Look, I want to be 100% clear. AI has many bugs in it, many problems with AI right now, right? And the 2 biggest are AI will lie to you, right? AI hallucinates. AI is only as good right now as how you've trained it. And if you're using the public versions, you're not creating your own co-pilots or you have your own language libraries. AI does not have an ability to not answer a question, and therefore, if it doesn't have the right answer, it just makes it up. It's like my kids. They're in their 30s, they totally appreciate that. And the second thing is we still have not figured out how to eliminate bias, right? In both the answers, the people who are creating AI, there is no way right now to disassociate the bias that I have as a human to what the code that I'm writing. And so we have to figure that out. I had to laugh. Elon Musk was out talking about how AI was going to destroy humanity, and now he has X.AI. Like, let's be serious. But it is like every other technology. It has to be used productively, and it has to be managed. Like the thing about machines is they're kind of like people, except for they come to work every day. But they have to be trained, we have to use them correctly, we have to figure out what are the strengths, right? And you saw that robot thing, right? I mean, that's real stuff, and I like the movie I, Robot, where the robots took over and then we beat them up. Right? That was great. And look, in 100 years, I think things like that will be happening. I don't have any doubt, but I also think, maybe robots will be fighting wars and we won't lose our children, and who knows what will happen. I would spend much more time and energy understanding what it can do, understand the limits, but if in 2 years everyone in this room is not using some kind of AI in your life, right, you will fall meaningfully behind. Meaningfully behind. And so we have to find that balance between going too far, but going far enough so that your businesses and things that you're doing get benefit from the AI, and you're not just disintermediated by others who are using that technology.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
He got his Coke products. All right. So we have 2 awards today. This is always a good time and fun to just highlight a few either organizations or businesses, and so we have 2 here. The first one is Seeds of Hope, as you can see here, and they are the award winner for our David Bretto Community Betterment Award. And for those of you who know Dave Bretto, he spent a lot of time at the county, did a lot of good things. He helped get WCEDA started. He currently now is actually serving on the board, but not here today. We had established that award in his name to honor local organizations, mostly nonprofit in the county, that are doing some great work. And so really proud today to be able to honor Seeds of Hope. And so just real quickly, I'm going to give a little bit of background, and then I think we have a photo slideshow, and then we have a few people who will talk on their behalf. So, you know, they talk about, what do? They talk about every day as an opportunity for learning and growing, and they utilize horticulture as a form of therapy. They are based in Elkhorn, by the way, and they talk about how that's an excellent opportunity to promote and inspire lives in the greater community. Life is never easy, especially when you have developmental or other disabilities, and so they primarily serve families with disabilities. And, you know, some of the activities that they do, they talk about, you know, going to working in the greenhouse, taking a walk around the golf course, which they're near, planting vegetables at the fair, going to the Milwaukee Zoo. They also do individual tasks during the day, and so sometimes they have to modify those tasks to make sure that everyone feels needed throughout the day. So that could be washing pots, pulling a wagon, using a screwdriver. I know that we had come in contact with them through an Elkhorn group, downtown group that we work with, that has flowers and flower pots and needed watering. And it's just been a great time to work with them in partnership. So I think at this time, we're going to run some pictures, and then I'd like to invite Jamie Stilling and also Heather Leisure up just to say a few words.
So one thing that's funny, so part of the reason that I started Seeds of Hope was because of mental health. And my great-grandfather came here in 2017 and worked for Walworth County in the mental health field. And then also my great-grandmother worked for Walworth County, both of them for over 35 years in the mental health. A lot of you may not know, but sunlight and dirt are 2 key components to help mental health. And so that is something, Seeds of Hope, I didn't realize it when starting it, but the sunlight and actually working with your hands. I mean, some of mental health issues are because people don't work with their hands as much. And that is something that really helps with mental health, is being able to bring dirt, sunlight, and working with your hands into that picture. So sometimes I talk too much, so I wrote something down. Another thing is Dave Bretto actually was a part of Walworth County from 2003 until 2020. So you with Fiserv and Dave with that are very, very similar. What an honor, Seeds of Hope, to be recognized with the Dave Bretto Community Betterment Award. Dave changed things in our county to help it thrive, building new administration homes for county workers and reducing management to get more accomplished. Seeds of Hope saw a need to provide purpose for those with developmental disabilities. Our doors opened and we began knocking on doors within Walworth County to help Seeds of Hope and our community to flourish. A good leader leads by example. Seeds of Hope wants to continue to be a leader like Dave Brettel, to bring our community together, to work together to help those in need, to teach and empower those around us so everyone's light can shine and the community can grow and blossom into the next generations. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and Seeds of Hope will continue to strive to make our community better.
All right, if you could just hold on a second. Ryan did a picture of us here, and also forgot to mention that there's a check too, so I'm sure that'll go to good use. Thank you again for all the work that you do. So our next award, so we have a business award that we chose for this year around technology, and I think it was fitting for some of your remarks, Jeff. But one of our awards is the Business Investment in Technology Award, and so Radius Packaging is our award winner, and gosh, it goes back, I think, 6 years now when I first met Tom Frank, who at the time the company was Shenik, and I know they were landlocked, they were looking to expand, wasn't any really good property nearby that worked for them, so they were looking at Elkhorn, wasn't too far from New Berlin, had good power, but they also wanted a backup plan in case that didn't work, and so we worked with Delavan as well, and long story short, they ended in Delavan. It's great. I know I have a little slideshow here to talk about, but really great company. We're so glad they located here. They've made huge investments in the company. Whoops. I think we do have a little slideshow, but we may have to switch that over, so I'll give them just a second to get that ready. But the reason we do that award is really just to, one, recognize companies that are making significant investments in technology, but then also hopefully encouraging others to do that. So at this time, I'd like to call Tom Frank up, and I know he's got a few things to say, and then we'll run through the slideshow.
Well, thank you guys very much for the honor and the recognition for the investment that we made in Walworth County. I guess I'll step back and tell the story, kind of talk where Derek left off. We were in Waukesha County in New Berlin. We were landlocked. We had basically crammed every bit of floor space with machinery, and had a 250,000 square foot warehouse about 30 minutes away because we couldn't fit our product in our facility. So that, we were notified by our landlord there that they were going to tear that down and create housing. So we started looking for where did we want to expand, and there were some requirements to that. So the requirements were we needed space, obviously lots of land, we didn't want to be landlocked, we needed rail, and we needed freeway access. So we started looking throughout all the different communities, and wound up finding Walworth County to be a perfect fit for what we do in the strong plastics base that's located within this county, as well as where our customers were located from this location. So can we step back to the beginning of this? Yeah, so just so everybody's aware, at Radius we are a plastic packaging provider for the food and beverage, nutraceuticals, home goods, and professional cleaning. We do injection molding, blow molding, and design services for our customers. So when we came to this location, we do about 400 million containers a year. Out of the Delavan facility alone, we can do about 250 million. Can we flip to the next page? Yeah, so and just keep going one more. So from an investment standpoint, we basically put about 15 million into a building. We have a 250,000 square foot facility in Delavan. One of the blow molding machines that we purchased and the injection molding machine was about a total of 11 million just for that. And then we have 4 more at about 3 million with automation in each one of those. Total $38 million that we invested in Walworth County. And when we did that, we basically said, okay, what do we want to do different in our industry? Because we were learning about Industry 4.0, which was coming out of Germany at the time when we put this together. And we wanted to make sure that when we were building a facility, we fully automated it so that the first time anybody touched a product is when we had a full high skid that was going to be loaded onto a truck. So we have total automation, which you can see through those lines with full pack out. And through the COVID time, when a lot of people were struggling for labor, we didn't have a single issue because of our automation. So we were able to keep everything moving and flowing for our customers, and therefore we're being rewarded with more business. But one of the last things I guess I just want to touch on, which I think is even more important just in the financial investment. When we move to a location, we want to be part of the community and we want to invest. And what we think success is that when the people on our team can be an active participant within the community where they live and work. And so we try to give back to the community through investment, and we've partnered with the local schools to provide opportunity for them to come in to learn more about our industry, learn more about technology, and then where they can apply that to the future. And again, you know, it takes a team, and we have an awesome team at Radius that all were participated in the building of this facility. So thank you to my team, and thank you everybody here for this honor.
So the last part of our program, we just like to recognize some of our outgoing board members. I think they're going to cue that up. I know we had some things with trying to go back and forth in different formats this morning, so just give that a second. But we do have 2 board members who served 2 3-year terms, and so our bylaws say that at that point they term out, and so we like to recognize. So the first one, when they get that up, will be GL Chambers. A lot of people know GL. He and his family own the Geneva National Golf Course and the Ridge. His organization really was involved earlier when we first started. And I wasn't with the agency at the time with WCEDA, but in 2005, I know a lot of you might know Kevin Pollack, but Kevin Pollack was very instrumental in WCEDA and had worked with Garth and his family for many years. And so once Kevin had left, GL joined, and a couple of things that he helped us work on was more recently with investigating a workforce innovation grant in partnership with some of the other resorts, and then also just looking at helping us think through and being a part of this housing initiative. So really, and unfortunately GL's not here, nor is Dr. Hibner today. They both couldn't be here, but we really appreciate their service to the board. We have a little memento that I will deliver to both of them after the fact, but we did want to recognize them here today. And then last but not least, Chris Hibner, who is the district administrator for East Troy, and Chris is a great guy. He had helped us really when we were starting with our Inspire and the Maiden-Walworth County youth programs, had helped us get that going and gave us a lot of guidance on that. Again, Chris couldn't be here, but he said that he's also helped participate in our, we have some superintendent roundtables, but he just asked me to read a brief statement, and he was very kind to WCEDA, but he said, anyone that knows me knows that I can be a little long-winded, which is true, and that I just want to say thank you to WCEDA for the ongoing commitment toward helping and supporting communities and school districts within the county, and that our various efforts from community growth to job availability, training, supporting districts with career readiness for our children and other partnerships are truly important and admirable. So he just wanted to thank us for that work and that he was happy to be a part of it. So we're sad to see them leave, but really appreciate that. Again, we have listing in our booklet of all of our board members. I'm very lucky to have a great board. With that, that concludes our program for today. Really appreciate you being here, sponsoring. Again, Jeff, thank you for being here. Really appreciate that. I know he'll be here for questions. So thank you, and have a good holiday season.